Hello and what is up my friends, it's Thunder Bob here with a look at the most updated version of the awesome sauce running on my Legends Gamer Pro. It's been a year or so since my last video covering the Legends Ultimate Arcade or the Gamer Pro. It's mostly because I felt like the awesome sauce had really perfected these systems. There really wasn't much left to cover. Since then I've done coverage of other devices, the RetroFE Pocket, the Steam Deck, the Send-In Light Gun. I've always got to have something I'm tinkering with. But I'm returning to this device now because of some exciting updates. The geniuses behind this pack have found a way to get it running on all cabinets, not just the first generation cabinets. This means you can run this amazing compilation of games on all versions of the Legend Ultimate, including the most recent firmware releases, the Core, the Gamer Pro, the Gamer Mini, or the Core Max. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to install the awesome sauce and the conversion patch that'll let it run on the Gamer Pro or other devices. I'm going to demonstrate how it works, a few games running on the system, my thoughts on using it on the Gamer Pro, the issues I've run into, and a couple of tweaks I might recommend. Now, to start with, what is the awesome sauce? This is a front end for your Legends device that allow you to play a ton of emulated games. It differs from CoinOps in that it also allows you to play newer systems, like a PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, and some arcade systems that were not possible previously. In my opinion, it also has a smoother and faster interface, and overall just kind of a more robust system. Now, how do you get the awesome sauce? The easiest way is to download the full build, which is 795 gigabytes from archive.org. I'll have a link down below where you can find this. With a file this large, I would strongly suggest using a download manager that will allow you to resume if you have any issues. Also, archive.org is not that fast. This is going to take days even if you have a gigabit internet connection like I do. There's also torrents available, though if you use download manager, I find this actually downloading it here is pretty reasonable. You can see here is a list of all of the games included with the full build, and it is substantial. We've got everything from Atari through about the Dreamcast era. Don't expect much beyond that era as far as being able to play games. There's 21,763 in total. Now, you can also download the starter pack, the base pack. This is 25 gigs, and it's basically what you need to get started and the arcade pack. This is pretty comparable to the arcade pack on CoinOps, to be honest. There's instructions here as well. If you do download just the core pack, if you go to the Awesome Sauces page on archive.org, you'll see all the additional add-on packs. So if you do the whole 795 gig, you'll get everything here. If you do just the core pack, you can come in here and you can actually select the individual packs that you want. I think the 25 gig is actually a good starting point if you just want to get a taste of this, how the interface works, what it looks like. Is it something you want to try out? You can put it on a 32 gigabyte flash drive without, breaking the bank. If you have a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte drive sitting around, go for the full thing. I've actually got the full 1 terabyte running on my Legends Ultimate Arcade. So I've got here everything I've downloaded. So, I said I've got a full build on my Legends Ultimate. I've got a Gamer Pro, and I've only got a 256 gigabyte drive to spare right now. I might upgrade. And down below in the description, I'll actually link to the SSD that I like to use, and also the flash drive if you're wanting for a smaller one, if you're interested in what I'm using. But this is the files I've downloaded. It's the core build plus the Nintendo consoles, Nintendo handheld, 3DO, Dreamcast, all of the Sega consoles, Neo Geo, PlayStation, and Dreamcast. Now, Sega, Dreamcast, and PlayStation, I think there's 600 PlayStation and something like 200 Dreamcast. So I actually called that, and how I did that is I exported these two into this folder. And if you go in here, you can actually just delete the files from this ROM list. Let me show you the, yeah. So this is kind of like what the directory looks like. If you delete a file in here, it will not show up in the interface. You can also go into the medium and delete the artwork that corresponds with that game if you want, though this is taking a lot less space up than the actual ROMs are. I did the same thing for PlayStation. I went from, I think it was 600 games down to about 200 of my favorite PlayStation games. The type of games that I would play with an arcade stick. Like, I'm not going to play Resident Evil, I'm not going to play Final Fantasy with an arcade stick. The multi-disc RPGs, they're just wasting space on here. So if you want a really good build on like a 256 or 512 gigabyte drive, it is certainly possible. So at this point, I've actually already done this once, but I'm going to kind of go through the motions and just kind of show you what you need to do. Let's go to the top level. So I've got a 256 gigabyte drive that's almost completely full. The first thing you want to do is make sure that it is running NTFS. You do that just by right-clicking and going to Properties. Make sure the file system is NTFS. If it's not, you want to format that drive. Just right-click, Format. You can just do a quick NTFS format. Just imagine this is empty. We're going to just kind of go through what you normally do. This OneSauce base is the 25 gigabyte base plus the arcade. This step is really the same if you're using the full build. You'd right-click. You want to use 7-zip. That's my favorite. You don't want to actually drag and drop. It's kind of slow because of the size of these files. But if you open this up and you try to just drag and drop the files over, of course it's taking forever right now, it actually will load those files into Windows temporary files, and it ends up doubling the space required during the movement process. Like if you've got too small of a hard drive or too small of a source drive, you may run out of space simply because of that. So if I just took these files and dragged them over, it's actually way slower than if you just right-click, go to extract files, or if you double-click and open up with 7-zip. I usually will just right-click, extract files, uncheck this box, make sure it's not checked. That messed me up the first time because it changed all the directories, and then just point it to the top level of your drive, if it's an SSD or flash drive, whatever it is. So here's mine. I would just click OK. It's going to the top level of that drive. Click OK, and it'll export everything. You can also try something. It's a little risky. I did it just because I'm lazy as hell. I actually did all of these at one time. I went I didn't do it to the conversion files or the fixes. So I took everything all at once that I wanted to move over, and I just said extract files. And this will actually extract all of those at once. So you don't have to individually like open up the main base, extract, open up the Nintendo, extract. You can do this and then walk away. The only problem is there are some files in here that are named the same and they're supposed to be overwritten as you're going. So you want to always look if that happens. It happened like 3 times when it was moving stuff over. I went with whatever was the newest version. Presumably the newer version would be the most up-to-date version. And when I did that, everything worked for me, and it was a lot easier than having to do this individually. Your mileage may vary depending on like the order and what you're doing and everything, but it worked for me. If you had the full build, you would literally just have a single file that says full build. You'd right-click, extract files, extract it to the top level of your F drive, and after that, there's also a conversion. So I've already downloaded this, but here's the conversion file. And the only time you don't need to do this is if you're running a 1.0 Legends Ultimate that is running 4.15 or 4.20 firmware. Any other device or firmware version, you're going to need to run this conversion. So you download it from the same web page. And here's the instructions. There's 4 files in here. If you've got the Core Max, use the Core Max. The PUC file is for the Core Gamer Pro Gamer Mini. This file is for the 1.0 Legends Ultimate running the current firmware. And this is for the Legends Ultimate 1.1 or 1.2. Now, what you would actually do, we'll go back to our pretend drive over here. You would find the one that corresponds with your device. I'm using a Gamer Pro, so I'll use the PUC. for this, I'm just going to drag and drop. I'm not going to bother with the exporting. Because there's such a small file, it'll go fast enough. You'd hit replace, it'll overwrite the files that are there. It's pretty quick. And yeah, that's all there is to it. One thing I do want to mention is there's this odd README file here that says you need to go in to this location and delete this file. When I did this, my controls stopped working. I think this is only for people that ran some earlier controller update and they've got 2 versions of this file. So if you do delete it, I would have a backup just in case it breaks your controls like it did mine. So you might not need to do that step. Just a fair warning. So that's it on the computer side of things. You can then unplug your USB drive, plug it into the Legends Ultimate, Gamer Pro, whatever you're using. The first time you launch, it may take a little while. It's going to show up in your BYOG listing, and if it doesn't, you may need to sign in. I found that it didn't actually show up in mine until I signed in. From here, you can pick, there's usually a couple of modes here. One thing I'll mention is that that saUCE folder can be deleted in the drive on your computer. I just forgot to here. That will not do anything to harm, but it isn't needed unless you're running on the Legends Ultimate 1.0 cabinet. Depending on your device, you'll get different options here. The performance gamer mode does like an overclock from my understanding. If you have issues, not all devices will be able to handle it. Go with the normal mode. The first time you launch this, it will take some time. And it should eventually launch. If it doesn't, pull the drive out, plug it back in, try again. It's a little finicky at times, especially the first boot up, I find. Now, once you're in, there are your arcade, console, computer, portables. You get all kinds of options in here. Different sections you can go into. Different UI options you can select. Under the themes, you can select a theme similar to CoinOps if you prefer that. There's like an 80s theme in here. Luna is the default, and I actually like Luna, I think, the best. But they're all pretty comparable in feature sets. It's just kind of what art and style you like the best. So I'm just going to have some footage running on the background here that I'm going to kind of talk over and comment on. There is a huge number of arcade games here, and there's going to be some things that, if you have the full build, if you've been running CoinOps previously, that you might be surprised that will run here. I'm going to just boot up Street Fighter Third Strike. This is just a cool Street Fighter game, and I'm going to show you some cool things you can do in this game that you couldn't do before. And there's one small issue I want to talk about that's specific to the Gamer Pro. And actually, I think it's any device that uses Bluetooth. If you connect your controller to the puck using Bluetooth, you cannot exit out of games using the menu button and the rewind button twice like you would normally do. That's the default button press to get out of a game. That doesn't work. For some reason, the Bluetooth like throws that button off and it just doesn't function like it should. But there is another way to back out of most games. There are some games that I have not found a way to back out of, and you'll probably need to go in and customize the controls. I kind of hope that eventually this gets addressed, but at the moment there is a kind of a workaround here, so I'm just going to show a minute of footage, and then I'm going to show you how to get into the RetroArch menu. So if you long press the Player 1 button, it'll bring up this menu here. This is the RetroArch menu. From here, you can do things like exit out of RetroArch. This will take you back to the main interface. You can also come in here and customize all kinds of things depending on the system and the game. You can change like resolution scaling for some games to make them look better if they, have that extra power, or scale them down if the FPS is not good enough. You can turn on like an FPS meter in the corner so you can know if it's running at 60 FPS, 30 FPS. You can also enable shaders in here, CRT shaders, curvature shaders, things like that. I haven't played around a lot with it, but for some systems, it really is a game changer to make it look authentic. And then, like I said, if you want to back out of the game, you just click on that exit RetroArch at the bottom, and that'll take you back to the main interface, which I'll go ahead and do right now. Just back out from the, right there, and now we're back onto the interface. And we're just going to keep going through a couple of games here. I want to show off one or two that I think people that are longtime CoinOps users seeing this might be surprised. There are some games that people just always requested. I can remember back in the Legends Ultimate Secret Society Facebook group. Does anyone have Marvel vs. Capcom 2 running? Does anyone have MVC 2 running? And it's pretty easy to run the Dreamcast version. The arcade version is still not possible as far as I'm aware, but the Dreamcast version does run and runs quite well using the Awesome Sauce. Dreamcast actually runs pretty well. PlayStation also runs quite nicely. The PSP, I find, isn't really worth the effort. It just doesn't run very well, and the scaling on it's kind of goofy. Nintendo 64 is also very hit or miss. Some games just run great. Some games run really poorly, crash, or don't want to launch at all. It is one thing I want to mention here, that there's kind of a different philosophy I find between the CoinOps team and the Awesome Sauce team. CoinOps was very much like a curated experience. I remember like people had games that kind of work, but they didn't work well enough, and they would get deleted out of kind of the newest version until they could get to a certain level of performance. Whereas Awesome Sauce kind of feels more like kind of a kitchen sink philosophy. If the system works, they're going to throw every game possible in there, even if they haven't all been tested, even if all the controls haven't been configured completely. And it's kind of, in some ways it's better, in some ways it's worse. I like having, all the games there I can go in and I can mess with, and I know how to go in and customize, being kind of a power user, but not everyone is at that same level. So if you're kind of a newbie and you really don't want to go in and configure stuff, CoinOps is maybe a little bit more your speed, because out of the box, it's a pretty good experience. If you're more patient and willing to kind of, oh, this game's not working, or I need to go in, I need to change something on it, that's kind of what to expect here. They are going through, my understanding is trying to get people to go in and test a lot more games, but there are tons of games here, and there are going to be a certain percentage of them that either don't run perfectly or don't run at all. So, it is what it is. And here's another game that I can just remember people begging for, can we get Blitz running? Can we get Blitz running? And the Dreamcast version works fairly well. Blitz 2000 here has a few graphical glitches at times, but the gameplay is pretty spot on. 2001 has kind of long loading, and sometimes I have to reload it, but it doesn't have as many graphical problems. So that's what I'm saying, like, the games generally work. Sometimes there might be some compromises, some minor issues. But for the most part, what's in here works pretty well. But beyond the huge game library, the one thing I really have to say about the Awesome Sauce that's amazing is the interface. How quick, how snappy it is. I can be in a game like Cool Borders 4, I can exit out, and I'm just back into the interface. And it just moves so quickly. Like, the default Legends Ultimate, and even the CoinOps interface just bogs down so much, especially when it's got a lot of games in it. Sometimes it freezes, sometimes I have to restart completely. Just as an example, I'm going to go into the Game Boy Advance, which has just an incredibly large library. There's like 1,000 games for the Game Boy Advance, and just watch how fast I can go through this. I'm just holding to the right. And beyond that, I can also press, there's a button to go back and forward by letter. And there's no delay even just like, going through the entire alphabet. Look how quickly I can skim through this. No delay, I could just stop and hit A at any time and just boot up the game. I also really love how they've got the games organized, mostly in the arcade area. Like the console, they don't do this, but the arcade, they've really gone to extreme lengths. You can go to arcade and you can do all games, you can do collections. Collections are like Atari, Capcom, Konami. It's like the big classic arcade developers. And you want to go in and look for all of Capcom's classic games. Boom, you've got Street Fighter, you've got 1942, you've got, a huge library of games. You can back out and then go to genres. You're looking for sports games, puzzle games. You're a big shoot 'em up fan. You go into shoot 'em up, and you can see every shoot 'em up practically ever released in 1970 to about 1999. And this is one of my favorite genres. There's almost 500 shoot 'em up games here. It's incredible. And beyond that, you can go in and look at it by system. So you want a specific system you're interested in, like a Capcom or a Sega board that, like, oh, I really wanted to know all the the Sega CPS board games or whatever. Or Cave, one of my favorite shooters. They've got a separate category in here for all the Cave shoot 'em up games, like Dodonpachi. This is one of my favorite shoot 'em up games. I love this game. Just such a spectacular game. So I'm like immensely impressed with the awesome sauce. The fact that you can run it on any cabinet now is just amazing. Like, I was lucky enough to have a 1.0 cabinet, but not everyone had one of those. And I'm fortunate that I have the 1.0 Legends Ultimate, and then I also got a Gamer Pro when they were down to $99. So I can have a system that runs the most recent firmware for certain, like, multiplayer and different things that they release. And then also now I can use the awesome sauce on there, which, it runs really well on this device as well. I do hope they fix the issue with the Bluetooth and, being able to back out of games. You can still do it with the RetroArch menu, but it's a little more cumbersome. And some of the systems don't use that interface, so I've still got to figure out how to back out of those. If you've got any thoughts or any other ideas for me, drop me a note below, and I'd be definitely interested in that. If you do run into any issues, there is a really great community on Facebook that is very friendly and willing to assist. I would suggest searching, as there are a ton of answers already out there on the Facebook group. If you don't find your answer, feel free to ask away. They're really friendly. Overall, I continue to be impressed with this amazing team, what they've put together, how well it runs, the additional gaming options it's provided for the Legends Ultimate. I am definitely going to keep an eye out on future developments, and we'll cover, new things for Legends Ultimate, for the awesome sauce, for coin ops, anything interesting I see. So yeah, that's it for tonight. I do want to thank everyone for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, I have an entire playlist of Legends Ultimate content, along with coverages of other devices like the Steam Deck, the Retroid Pocket, the Sinden Light Gun. I also do a lot of coverage of new releases, retro games, and virtual reality. If you enjoy what I'm putting out there, please do like, subscribe, and drop me a comment with your thoughts. Thanks again, and have a great night, everyone.